For today, we are going to discuss the pattern in natures. So, first, I'll discuss about symmetry, and these are the type of symmetries. The first one is reflections. This leaf and this plant is an example of reflections. As you can see, this part of this leaf, the reflection of this part has the same shape and has the same size. The second part is rotation. Is one object is rotated in a certain direction around a point. Example, these pictures. This is one example of rotation. And the third is translation. They must be the same size and same shape with one object having a different orientation from the first. For example, these pictures. And the next pattern in nature is spirals. This is the one example of spirals. A spiral is a curve which emanates from a point moving farther away as it revolves around the point. So, the next pattern in nature is meanders. This called meanders, the tears meanders, is one which refers to a winding curve or band. This is the one example of meanders. And the next pattern in nature is wave. Waves are disturbances that carry energy, they move. So, this is the one example of waves.
The next pattern that we see in the world or in nature is foam and bubble. Foam is a substance made by trapping air or gas, and this picture is one of the example of foam. And next is bubble. Inside the bubble, there is a solid or liquid. For example, this picture. This is also one of the example of bubbles. The next pattern that we see in the world or nature is tessellation. Tessellation is a tiling that uses shape to cover a surface with no gaps or overlaps. For example, this picture. This is also one of the example of tessellation. The next pattern that we see in the world or nature is fracture and crack. Fracture occurs when the applied stress is sufficient to the atomic bands of the sulline. A separation of an object into two or more pieces under stress. And this picture is one of the example of fracture. Next is crack. Crack is a line on a surface of something along which it has split with breaking into separate parts. And this picture is also one of the example of crack.
Explanation about strips and spot. It is the pattern of a parallel waves becomes unstable, or pursuing this lead Murray to interesting theorem a spot. Explanation about fractal is a mathematics of any class of complex geometric shape that commonly have fractional dimension or a concept. First introduced the mathematician is Felix Haderstropp in 1918. Fractal are distinct from the simple figure of classical or Euclidean geometry, the square, the circle, the sphere, and so forth. Explanation about affine or transformation is a linear mapping method that preserves points, straight line, and plane. Set of parallel lines remain parallel after affine transformation. The transformation is a technique is typically used to correct for geometric distortion or deformation that occur with non-ideal camera angles.